My name is Lawrence Coleman, but everyone has always called me Larry. I am 64 years old, and I am currently sleeping on a thin mattress in the back corner of a tuk-tuk repair garage in Pattaya, Thailand, surrounded by the smell of engine oil and exhaust fumes, surviving on handouts from a local expat food program and whatever odd jobs I can find. 3 months ago, I had 210,000 Australian dollars in my bank account, a rented condo overlooking Emptied Beach, and a wife who called me husband and promised to spend the rest of her life with me. Now I have nothing, no money, no home, no wife, and no way to return to Australia because I cannot even afford the flight. Her name was Kanakwan, but she told me to call her Prai. She was 28 years old, beautiful in a way that seemed innocent rather than calculated, and she worked at a small beer bar off Soi Buakau, where I first walked in on a humid evening in March of 2023. She told me she only worked there to help her younger sister finish school, that she hated the bar life, that she wanted to find a good man and build a proper life away from the noise and the chaos. She said she had been waiting for someone like me, someone kind, someone honest, someone who would treat her with respect. I believed every word. I wanted to believe every word, because I was 63 years old when I met her, freshly divorced for the second time, broke and bitter after selling my diesel mechanic workshop and my retirement house just to pay out my ex-wife. And I had come to Thailand with the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, I could find some warmth and purpose in the final years of my life. I thought Prai was my second chance. I thought she was the woman who would make all the pain and loneliness worth it. We were married at the Pattaya Amphor office exactly 6 weeks after we met. She wore a simple white dress from the market, and I wore the nicest shirt I owned. She called me her hero, her savior, her forever husband. I opened a joint bank account 3 days later and transferred nearly all of my savings into it because she said that was what Thai couples did, that it showed trust and commitment, that it meant we were building a future together. 3 months after our wedding, I woke up in our condo to find her side of the bed empty, her clothes gone from the closet, and a single text message on my phone that read, "Thank you for everything. I am sorry. Do not look for me." When I checked our joint bank account with shaking hands, the balance showed $347, $210,000, everything I had left after my divorce, everything I had worked for over 40 years as a mechanic was gone. Prai had emptied the account, sold our motorbike, pawned the jewelry I had bought her, and disappeared into the sprawling maze of Thailand, leaving me stranded, broke, and homeless in a foreign country where the police told me there was nothing they could do because we were legally married and the money had been in a joint account. This is the story of how I destroyed my own life. This is the story of how a 63-year-old diesel mechanic from Perth became another cautionary tale, another lonely man who ignored every warning, dismissed every red flag, and handed his life savings to a woman who saw him not as a husband, but as an opportunity to be exploited and discarded. I need to start by explaining who I was before I met Prai, because understanding how I ended up in Thailand, alone and desperate, is the only way to understand why I fell for her so completely. I was born and raised in Perth, Western Australia. My dad was a truck driver, my mum worked at a bakery, and we never had much money, but we got by. I left school at 16 and became an apprentice diesel mechanic, working at a small garage that serviced mining equipment, trucks, and heavy machinery. I was good with my hands, good at problem solving, and I liked the work. It was honest, straightforward. You diagnosed the problem, you fixed it, you moved on. When I was 24, I married a woman named Karen. We had 2 kids, both boys, Connor and Jake. The marriage lasted 18 years before it fell apart. Karen left me for a bloke she met at her office, and the divorce was messy and expensive. I got the kids on weekends, paid child support, and tried to keep my head above water. In my mid-40s, I started my own workshop, specializing in diesel engine repairs. It was hard work, long hours, but I built a decent business. I remarried when I was 51, a woman named Sandra, who worked as a receptionist at a medical clinic. That marriage lasted 9 years before she told me she wanted out. She said I worked too much, that I was emotionally unavailable, that she felt like she was living with a stranger. I did not fight it. I was tired. The second divorce nearly destroyed me financially. Sandra got half of everything, half the value of the workshop, half the value of our house, half of my superannuation. I had to sell the workshop to pay her out, and I sold the house as well, because I could not afford to keep it on my own. By the time everything was settled, I was 63 years old with around 260,000 Australian dollars to my name my entire life, savings and the proceeds from selling everything I had built over 4 decades. My kids were grown by then. Connor was working in the mines up north, and Jake was living in Melbourne with his girlfriend. They had their own lives, and I barely heard from them. After the divorce, I moved into a small flat in Fremantle, and I spent my days doing nothing. I had no job, no purpose, no reason to get out of bed in the morning. I felt like I had worked my entire life for nothing, and now I was just waiting to die. That was when I started researching places to retire abroad. I had always wanted to travel, but I had never had the time or the money. Now I had both, and I needed to get away from Perth, away from the memories, away from the emptiness. Thailand kept coming up in my searches. The cost of living was low, the weather was warm, and there was a large community of Australian expats. I watched YouTube videos of older blokes living in Pattaya, and they all seemed happy, relaxed, surrounded by beautiful women who did not judge them or expect them to be anything other than who they were. In February of 2023, I decided to do it. I booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok, packed 2 suitcases, and left Australia behind. I told Connor and Jake I was moving to Thailand. Connor said, "Good on you, Dad. You deserve a break." Jake just said, "Be careful." Neither of them tried to stop me. Neither of them offered to visit. I arrived in Bangkok on a hot, humid evening and spent one night in a cheap hotel near the airport. The next morning, I took a bus to Pattaya. I had chosen Pattaya because it seemed like a place where I could disappear, where I could reinvent myself, where I could find some peace and maybe, just maybe, some companionship. I checked into a small guest house in Emptied and spent my first few days just walking around, trying to get my bearings. Pattaya was overwhelming, louder, dirtier, and more chaotic than I had imagined. The streets were packed with motorbikes, tuk-tuks, and street vendors shouting at passing tourists. Everywhere I looked, there were bars, open-air beer bars, go-go bars, massage parlors, and clusters of girls in tight clothing calling out to men walking by. I had heard about Pattaya's reputation, but seeing it in person was something else. At first, I felt uncomfortable, almost ashamed to be there. But the longer I stayed, the more I realized that this was just how things worked here. The women were friendly, the beer was cheap, and nobody judged you for being old, divorced, or lonely. On my 5th night in Pattaya, I walked down a side street called Soi Buakau. It was lined with small beer bars, each one with a handful of girls sitting on stools, drinking and chatting with customers. I stopped at one of the bars, a narrow, open-air place with a wooden counter and a few high tables. A young woman approached me immediately, smiling, and asked what I wanted to drink. Her name tag read Pry. She was different from the other girls I had seen. She was petite, maybe 5 feet tall, with long black hair tied back in a ponytail and a round, friendly face. She wore jeans and a simple t-shirt, not the tight shorts and bikini tops that most of the other bar girls wore. She looked modest, almost shy. She brought me a beer, opened it, and set it down in front of me. "First time Pattaya?" she asked in clear English. "Yeah," I said. "Just got here a few days ago." "You like?" "It is different. Not sure what to make of it yet." She smiled. "Pattaya crazy. But if you know right place, can be good. Where you from?" "Australia. Perth." "Oh, Australia. Very far. Why you come here?" I hesitated, then decided to be honest. "I got divorced. Needed a change. Needed to get away from everything." Prey nodded sympathetically. "I understand. Divorce very hard. My father divorced my mother long time ago. Very sad." We talked for a while about Australia, about Thailand, about life. Pry told me she was from a small village near Buriram, that she had been working in Pattaya for 3 years to help her younger sister finish school. She said she did not like working in the bar, that it was just temporary, that she wanted to find a good man and have a normal life. She said most of the men who came to the bars only wanted one thing, and she was tired of it. I liked her immediately. She was not overly flirtatious or pushy like some of the other girls. She seemed genuine, real. I stayed at the bar for a few hours, buying drinks for both of us, and when I finally stood to leave, Prey touched my arm gently and said, "You come back tomorrow? I like talking to you." "You different." I did come back the next day, and the day after that, within a week, I was visiting Prey every night. She started calling me my husband, which made me laugh at first, but then it started to feel natural. She said I was kind, that I listened to her, that I treated her with respect. She said she felt comfortable with me in a way she did not feel with other customers. After 2 weeks, Pry asked me if I wanted to take her out of the bar, not just for the night, but permanently. She said she was tired of working there, that if I helped her, she would quit and be with me. She said she wanted to be a good Thai wife, to cook for me, to take care of me, to build a life together. I did not hesitate. I paid the bar 10,000 baht, about 450 Australian dollars, and Pry left with me that night. She moved into my guest house room, and within days, I felt like I had found exactly what I had been searching for. Call to action. If you're watching this and thinking, this could never happen to me, I want you to understand something. I thought the exact same thing. Romance scammers are professionals who exploit loneliness, hope, and the universal need for love. Subscribe to this channel and share this video to help protect vulnerable people from making the same mistakes I did. My story is about to get much worse, and you need to see how quickly everything can fall apart. Pry was everything I had hoped for. She was affectionate, attentive, and genuinely seemed to care about me. She cooked simple Thai meals in the tiny kitchenette in my guest house room: fried rice, pad krapao, grilled fish. She cleaned the room, washed my clothes by hand, and made sure I always had cold beer in the small fridge. She laughed at my jokes, held my hand when we walked through the streets, and called me husband in front of other people, which made me feel proud. Within a month, I decided we needed a better place to live. The guest house was cramped and noisy, and I wanted somewhere we could build a proper life together. I found a small one-bedroom condo in Emptied, about a 10-minute walk from the beach. The rent was 18,000 baht per month, about 800 Australian dollars, and it was furnished with a bed, a couch, a small kitchen, and a balcony overlooking the street below. It was not fancy, but it felt like home. Pry was thrilled. She decorated the condo with flowers and small decorations from the market. She invited a few of her friends over for dinner to show off our new place. I felt like I was finally living the life I had imagined, a simple, comfortable life in Thailand with a woman who loved me. But Pry also started talking about our future. She said she wanted to be a real wife, not just a girlfriend. She said in Thai culture, if a woman lived with a man without being married, people would judge her, would think she was not respectable. She said her family back in Buriram was asking questions, and she wanted to be able to tell them that we were properly married. I had been married twice before, and both times had ended badly, but Pry was different. She was not demanding or materialistic. She just wanted security, stability, and respect. I told her I would think about it, and she smiled and kissed me on the cheek. "I wait for you, husband," she said. "I wait as long as you need." Pry also started talking about money. She said it would be easier if we had a joint bank account, so we could manage our finances together. She said it was what Thai couples did, that it showed trust and commitment. I had around 210,000 Australian dollars in my account back in Australia, the money from selling my workshop and my house. I was living off that money, spending around $3,000 a month on rent, food, and entertainment. At first, I was hesitant. I had been burned twice before, and I knew that mixing money with relationships could be dangerous. But Pry seemed hurt by my hesitation. She said I did not trust her, that I still saw her as a bar girl rather than my partner. She said if we were going to build a life together, we needed to trust each other completely. I did not want to hurt her, so I agreed. We went to a Bangkok bank branch in Pattaya, and I opened a joint account. I transferred most of my savings, 190,000 Australian dollars, into the account. Pry's name was on the account alongside mine, and she had full access. Pry hugged me tightly when we left the bank. "You best man in the world, Larry," she said. "I never leave you, I promise." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. And for a while, everything seemed perfect. In May of 2023, exactly 6 weeks after we met, Pry and I got married. It was a simple registration at the Pattaya Amphor office. Pry wore a white dress she had bought at a local market, and I wore a button-down shirt and clean trousers. We brought 2 of Pry's friends to serve as witnesses, and the whole process took less than 45 minutes. Afterward, we went to a small restaurant near the beach to celebrate. Pry was radiant, smiling and taking photos, posting them on her Facebook page with captions like, "My husband forever," and "the happiest day of my life." I felt a surge of pride and joy. I had done it. I had found love again. I had found a woman who wanted to be with me, who appreciated me, who made me feel like my life still had meaning. But even then, there were warning signs I chose to ignore. My mates from the expat community, blokes I had met at bars and restaurants, warned me that marrying a bar girl was a mistake. They said these women were professionals at separating lonely men from their money, that once the marriage papers were signed, everything would change. One bloke, a 68-year-old Brit named Colin, pulled me aside one evening and said, "Larry, mate, I know you think she's different. They all think that. But I've watched this happen dozens of times. Bar girls don't change. They just get better at hiding who they really are. Protect your money. Don't put anything in her name. And for Christ's sake, don't open a joint account." I had already opened the joint account. I did not tell Colin that. I just smiled and said I appreciated the concern, but Pry was different. Colin shook his head and said, "I hope you're right, mate, but when it all goes to shit, don't say I didn't warn you." I pushed his words out of my mind. I told myself these blokes were bitter, jaded, that they had been hurt and now assumed every relationship was doomed. But my relationship was different. Pray loved me. She had proven it by marrying me, by cooking for me, by staying with me even when she could have easily gone back to the bar and found someone with more money. But things did start to change after the wedding. Pry became more distant. She spent more time on her phone, always texting, always on Facebook or Line. When I asked who she was talking to, she would say it was her sister, her mother, her friends, nothing important. She stopped cooking as often, stopped being as affectionate, stopped calling me husband with the same warmth. I told myself it was normal. The honeymoon phase was fading. Marriage was about more than just romance. It was about partnership, about working through difficult moments as well as easy ones. Pry also started asking about money more frequently. She wanted to know how much was in the account, how much I was spending, how long the money would last. She said she was worried about our future, that we needed to invest in something that would give us security. She suggested buying land in her hometown, building a house there, maybe opening a small business. I was hesitant. I had worked hard for that money, and I wanted it to last. But Pry was persistent. She said I was being too cautious, that I did not trust her, that we could build something great together if I would just have faith. I said I needed time to think about it. Pry seemed frustrated, but she did not push further, at least not right away. For a few weeks, things seemed to settle. Pry was still distant, still on her phone constantly, but she was there. She was still my wife. She was still sleeping in my bed, still living in our condo, still part of my life. And then, one Tuesday morning in early July, I woke up and everything was different. I opened my eyes around 6:30 in the morning. The condo was quiet, too quiet. I rolled over, expecting to see Pry lying next to me, but the bed was empty. I called her name. No answer. I got up, walked through the small condo, and immediately noticed that something was wrong. Pry's clothes were gone. Her shoes, her makeup, her phone charger all gone. The small decorations she had put up around the condo were missing. Even the cheap plastic flowers she had bought at the market were gone. I felt panic rise in my chest. I grabbed my phone and saw a single text message from Pry, sent at 3:45 in the morning. It read, "Thank you for everything. I am sorry. Do not look for me." I tried calling her. The phone went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. I opened Line and sent her a message. The message showed as unread. I checked her Facebook page. It was gone. I stood in the middle of the empty condo, my hands shaking, trying to understand what was happening. I opened my banking app, my fingers clumsy and unsteady. I logged into the joint account. The balance showed 347 Australian dollars. I stared at the screen, unable to process what I was seeing. I refreshed the app. The number did not change. $347 out of 190,000. I scrolled through the transaction history. There had been a series of large withdrawals over the past 4 days, transfers to Thai bank accounts I did not recognize. Cash withdrawals from ATMs all over Pattaya, payments to mobile banking services, all of it authorized by Pry, all of it legal because her name was on the account. I collapsed onto the couch, my head in my hands, unable to breathe. 190,000 Australian dollars. Gone. Everything I had worked for, everything I had saved over 40 years as a mechanic. Gone. I went to the Pattaya police station later that morning. I brought my phone, my bank statements, the marriage certificate, screenshots of our conversations. I sat across from a bored-looking officer and explained what had happened. He barely looked at the documents I had spread out on the desk. "This is domestic matter," the officer said in broken English. "She, your wife, you give her access to account. She take money. This, not crime." "But she stole everything," I said, my voice rising. "She emptied the account and disappeared. How is that not a crime?" The officer shrugged. "Joint account mean both people can use money. She use money. This legal. You want divorce, you go lawyer. But police cannot help you. So she just gets away with it? You marry bar girl," the officer said flatly. "You no risk. Many Farang have same problem. This your mistake." I left the police station feeling numb. I went to a lawyer's office, a small practice near Soi Bua Khao that advertised services in English. The lawyer, a Thai woman in her 40s, listened to my story and shook her head. "I am very sorry, but there is not much we can do. She was a joint account holder, so the withdrawals were legal. You would need to prove that she defrauded you, which is very difficult. You would need evidence that she never intended to stay in the marriage, that her sole purpose was to steal your money. But proving intent is almost impossible in Thai courts." "What about the marriage?" I asked. "Can I get it annulled?" "You can file for divorce, but it will take time and money. And even if the divorce is granted, you will not get your money back. It is gone." I sat in silence. Then I asked, "How much would it cost to file for divorce?" "Around 50,000 baht. Maybe more if there are complications." 50,000 baht. About 2,200 Australian dollars. I did not even have that much left. Over the next few weeks, my life collapsed completely. I could not afford the rent on the condo, so I had to move out. I tried calling Connor and Jake to tell them what had happened. Connor answered, and when I explained, there was a long, uncomfortable silence. "Dad," he finally said, "I don't know what you want me to say. You moved to Thailand. You married some bar girl. You gave her all your money. What did you think was going to happen?" "I thought she loved me," I said, my voice breaking. "She didn't love you, Dad. She saw you coming a mile away." Jake did not even answer my call. He sent me a text message. "Sorry, Dad. Can't help. Got my own problems." I had no money for a flight back to Australia. I had no money for rent. I had no money for anything. I moved into a cheap hostel, a shared dormitory room, with 8 bunk beds for 3,000 baht a month. But even that became unaffordable when the money ran out. A bloke I had met at one of the bars, an older Australian named Steve, who ran a small tuk-tuk repair garage, offered to let me sleep in the back corner of his shop. He said I could help out with odd jobs, and he would give me a bit of cash here and there. I accepted. I had no other choice. That is where I am now. I sleep on a thin mattress in the corner of a greasy garage, surrounded by motorbike parts and the smell of exhaust. I wake up every morning to the sound of engines revving and Steve yelling at his workers in broken Thai. I survive on handouts from a local expat food program, free rice and curry every Tuesday and Thursday, and whatever small jobs I can find. Fixing motorbikes, helping people move, painting houses, anything that pays a few hundred baht. Over the months that followed, I learned more about what had happened to me. I started talking to other expats, blokes who had similar stories, men who had lost everything to women they thought loved them. I learned that Prai, or Konokwan, her real name, had done this before. She had married at least 2 other foreign men over the past 4 years, each time draining their accounts and disappearing. One bloke, a 65-year-old American named Frank, told me he had lost $70,000 to Prai 2 years earlier. He said she had used the exact same script, the shy, modest girl who did not drink, who only worked at the bar to help her family, who wanted a simple life with a good man. Frank said he had tried to find her, tried to press charges, but she had changed her phone number, moved to a different city, and disappeared without a trace. I felt a deep, crushing shame. I had been so desperate for love, so desperate to believe that someone could want me, that I had ignored every warning. I had opened a joint account with a woman I had known for 6 weeks. I had married a bar girl despite everyone telling me not to. I had handed over my entire life savings to someone I barely knew, and now I was paying the price. I am now 64 years old, sleeping in the back of a tuk-tuk garage in Pattaya, surviving on charity and odd jobs. I have no savings, no pension. I cashed it all out before I left Australia. I have no home to return to. I have burned bridges with my sons who want nothing to do with me. I spend my days walking through Pattaya, past the bars where I first met Pry, past the condo where we lived together, past the bank where I made the biggest mistake of my life. I see other older Western men with young Thai women, and I wonder how many of them are repeating my mistake. How many of them will end up like me, broke, alone, and stranded. I think about Pry often. I wonder where she is, what she is doing, whether she ever thinks about me. I want to believe that some part of what we had was real, but I know it was not. She was working. I was the job, and she did her job exceptionally well. I have accepted that I will never get my money back. I have accepted that I will probably spend the rest of my life in Thailand, sleeping in garages, doing odd jobs, surviving on the margins. I have accepted that I destroyed my own life through a combination of loneliness, desperation, and willful ignorance. My name is Lawrence Coleman, and I lost 190,000 Australian dollars, everything I had, to a woman I married after knowing her for 6 weeks. I ignored every warning. I dismissed every red flag. I believed that a bar girl could transform into a devoted wife, that love could be built in a matter of weeks, that trust was something you proved by handing over your life savings. I was wrong about all of it. Pry never loved me. She saw an opportunity, a lonely, desperate man with money and no one to protect him, and she took it. She was patient, affectionate, and utterly convincing. She played the role perfectly, and when she had everything she needed, she emptied the account and vanished. I sit in the corner of Steve's garage now, on my thin mattress, listening to the sound of engines and hammers, and I think about the choices I made. I think about the moment I opened that joint account, the moment I signed the marriage papers, the moment I ignored Colin's warning at the bar. I think about how easily a lifetime of hard work can be erased by a few bad decisions. I thought I bought a new life, but all I did was pay for my own destruction. I do not hate Pry. I do not even hate Thailand. I simply exist now, moving through each day with the quiet knowledge that I have no one to blame but myself. I made the decisions. I ignored the warnings. I opened the account, signed the papers, and handed over everything to a woman I barely knew. This is my life now. This is my future. And every morning, I wake up on that mattress in the garage, and I am reminded of exactly how much it cost to believe that someone could love me. Larry's story is a brutal reminder that romance scams are not always elaborate schemes conducted from a distance. Sometimes, the scammer is sleeping in your bed, calling you husband, and making you feel loved while systematically draining everything you have. If this documentary opened your eyes to the dangers of moving too fast in relationships, especially in environments where transactional relationships are the norm, please subscribe and share this video. Awareness is our only defense. Stay vigilant, protect your assets, and remember, real love is patient, transparent, and never asks you to ignore every warning sign to prove your devotion. Thank you for watching, and please, stay safe.